What's up everybody, and welcome back to another video. So as you probably know by now, Arena in Chapter 4 is a bit more challenging than it's been in the past, with players that seem to be constantly improving, less points per kill as you rank up, and various other factors. A lot of you might find yourselves struggling to gain points in Arena, and you may even be losing points. So that's why, in today's video, I'll be explaining how to stop losing points in Arena during Fortnite Chapter 4. I'll be going over a variety of reasons you may be struggling to gain points and giving solutions to each of them. Before we get into it, be sure to drop a like on the video if it helps you out, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and of course consider using code TECHWIN in the item shop. It's 100% free for you. It only takes a few seconds to type in, and it seriously does help me out a bunch. But with that said, and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So the first super common reason people lose points in Arena is because of an extreme playstyle. By extreme playstyle, I actually don't mean one particular playstyle, but I mean either playing too passive or too aggressive. The way I look at it is this: playing too passive or playing too aggressive will both cause problems for you in Fortnite. If you play super passive, landing at a silent spot and avoiding fights altogether, you're probably going to end up with less loot, and you won't gain the fighting experience that's actually going to help you improve the game. On the other hand, if you play way too aggressive, you're going to miss out on placement points, which are extremely valuable this season, because you're likely to end up getting killed eventually if you just W key super hard. Literally in champs, if you get 10 kills but you don't get any placement points, you lose points. So as you can tell, placement is very valuable. The best playstyle in Arena is definitely more of a middle ground playstyle this chapter. You don't want to fold W key for no reason, but you also don't want to camp and get 0 kills. Landing at a low to medium population spot, securing a few safe kills throughout the mid game, and then trying to secure the win at the end is definitely the strongest strategy right now for gaining points. The drop spot is definitely a big piece of this, and you should probably try to land at a spot with 1 or 2 other players or teams. That way you can fight off spawn and get some good loot without having to worry about constant third parties and other issues like those. It's really important to find that middle ground, and the exact spot you should choose is largely going to depend on your own skill set. So with that in mind, if you find yourself playing an extreme play style, whether it's too passive or too aggressive, try to adjust that so you can set yourself up to stop losing points. So moving on to our next tip, this one is going to only apply to team modes, and this is your teammates. Now, I am absolutely not the type of person to play Fortnite and blame losses on my teammates. That's not what my point is here. Sure, some of you might be playing with players who hold you back, but most players who do that know that that's the case and they're fine with it. Obviously, if your teammates are holding you back and you're not okay with that, then you should switch teammates. My main idea here, though, is that you're likely to lose points if you're in a constant cycle of finding new teammates, particularly random players. In team modes, consistency and chemistry are 2 of the most important factors in gaining points. And if you find yourself constantly cycling through teammates and playing with randoms each time you jump on Arena, chances are you're never going to actually have the opportunity to build that chemistry with a teammate. Really, when it comes to the people you play with, I'd say that the consistency is even more important than the skill levels of the players. If you can play alongside one another and know one another's playstyles, you're going to do way better. So what I'd recommend you guys do is, when you play team modes, try to find some consistent people to play with. That way you can get good at playing according to one another's playstyles and likely perform way better in game and gain points as a result. And as always guys, if you do need to find a good teammate, then I recommend you join my Discord server, which is going to be linked down in the description. In the server, all you need to do is select your region, and you're going to be added to a looking for group chat for your specific region, and in that chat you can find people to play with. Once again, the link is going to be down below. Moving on from that, the third reason some of you may be struggling to gain points in Arena is due to a lack of VOD reviews. When you're trying to get good at just about anything, the key is to figure out what you struggle with and fix that. In Fortnite, oftentimes we'll be playing the game and we make constant mistakes every game that oftentimes end up costing us the games and losing us points. However, since we generally just exit and hop straight into a new game, we usually don't have the time to reflect on what got us killed and improve upon those mistakes. And that is the reason why VOD reviewing is such a critical aspect of improving at Fortnite. When you don't know what you're doing wrong, it's extremely hard to improve on the things you actually do wrong. So what I recommend you guys do is something along these lines. Play out your Arena games as you usually would, and each time you have a solid game where you die, go ahead and take note of that replay. Once you collect, say, 3 or 4 of these replays, you're going to want to get some sort of notepad or something you can take notes on and watch those replays back. In particular, focus on the parts where you're engaged with other players, like fights and rotations. Take notes on whatever you see. This may include the mistakes you made in fights, what you and your opponents did correctly, how you could have handled the situations better, etc. Through this, you should be able to find some patterns in your gameplay. Some of these things might be smaller strategy things you can simply focus on in game, while others might be specific techniques or abilities that you're going to need to practice in creative. Either way, you should be able to spot your weaknesses and then devise a strategy to actually improve on them. If you don't know, I do offer paid one-on-one Fortnite coaching, and in a lot of my sessions, what we do is pretty much just constantly VOD review their games and figure out how to improve upon the mistakes they make. And honestly, this is one of the methods I found helps people the most. I just wanted to bring that up just to show how much of a valuable method it is. And of course, as a side note, the coaching link is going to be down in the description if anyone's interested in that. Moving on from that and on to our next potential issue that might be causing you to lose points. And this one is incredibly simple, but something most players seem to miss out on, which is simply grinding Arena. A lot of players get caught up in the idea of getting to champs fast and trying to gain points, but in the end, getting the most points should not really be your goal in Arena if you intend to improve the game. Instead, your goal should be to gain valuable experience and learn from your gameplay. Every win is a learning learning experience, and every death is a learning experience. And ultimately, one of the best ways to maximize the amount of learning and improving you can do is simply to play a lot of Arena. You can spend all day watching tips and tricks videos, and sure, they can help you learn a lot and they're very good for my ad revenue, but it's very hard to actually match the value you're going to get from simply grinding Arena over and over in order to get good at it. Grinding Arena allows you to improve your aim, mechanics, helps you learn the meta, and improve all other areas of your skill set all in one game. So overall, when you're trying to gain points in Arena, definitely don't neglect actually playing the game. For some reason, I see so many players making this mistake. Chances are your point gain issues can be solved by the improvement you're actually going to make through simply playing the game a lot. Moving on to the final part of today's video, and another issue a lot of players have is that they don't use the right fighting practice. Using proper fighting practice when you play creative is super important when it comes to improving in Arena games. If you approach your creative practice in the correct way, you should see a ton of carryover into your actual Arena. The first thing to keep in mind when it comes to creative practice is to try to stay true to the players you're actually trying to improve against, or in other words, play against better players. A common mistake people make when practicing in creative is they'll use good practice methods, except they'll play against people who are nowhere near the skill level of the people they'd fight against in Arena. I really recommend you guys try to maximize the skill level of the players you practice against. That way you're prepared when some cracked kid runs up to you in Arena and you have no idea what's going on. Now that we've discussed the players you should go against though, there are generally 3 different practice methods I recommend specifically for Arena. These methods include realistics, free-for-alls, and zone wars. For our first practice method, which is realistics, I'm basically talking about any form of realistic 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, and I guess you could even toss 4v4 in there, although there's no squads Arena. Basically, these are meant to be carbon copies of mid-game fights in regular matches, except they're in creative. As their name implies, they're pretty realistic, and if you're up against good players, they should help you improve quite significantly. I'll put the code up on screen to one of my favorite realistic 1v1 maps now, and you should be able to find a good 2v2, 3v3, or even 4v4 map simply by looking it up. The second method is free-for-alls, also known as realistic PvP, and it's simply a map where you drop into a massive cluster of players and you try to kill as many people as possible. Because of the insane amount of people in one area, these help you quite a bit to improve your awareness, handle third parties, and overall they help a lot for Arena. So once again, I'll put the code up to my top realistic PvP map. And finally, the last practice method in this section is going to be zone wars, which is pretty self-explanatory. You get into a ton of fights, and it also simulates a real endgame with limited materials, HP, etc. Although it's more similar to a scrim endgame than Arena, it does help a lot with Arena, and I recommend you use it. I'll put the code up on screen to one of my favorite zone war maps now. Overall though, by using those practice methods and preferably playing against highly skilled players, you should find yourself improving at fighting and winning far more fights in actual Arena games. So hopefully those practice methods help you guys out. Well, with all that said guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to stop losing points in Fortnite Chapter 4. Overall, there are a lot of different mistakes or issues that could lead to you not gaining points, including a lack of VOD reviews, an extremely passive or aggressive playstyle, poor fighting practice, and much more. But hopefully through watching this video, you were able to figure out what might be holding you back and find the solution so you can get back to gaining points. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like on it and consider subscribing as well if you're new to the channel and you want to see more content just like this in the future. And as always guys, if you want to show some extra support, consider using code TECHO in the item shop. It's 100% free for you. It only takes a few seconds to type in and it seriously does help me out a bunch. As always, a massive thank you to everyone who uses it. But with all that said, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.